Hello and what is up, YouTube? My name is G3Iron, and it has been a minute, but we've finally got some news for 321 and the upcoming changes that will be coming along with it, including some changes to how Grinding Gear Games is going to be communicating updates and specifically a manifesto or no manifesto specifically for the upcoming 321 unnamed, yet to be revealed league. So we knew that things were a little bit different with this patch cycle. Grinding Gear Games did a great job of giving us a heads up and said, hey, things are going to be a little bit slower. I have been messing around a little bit with the Ruthless with Gold event, but not much. To be honest, that's worthy of another video discussion unto itself. It just seems a little counterintuitive to me, to the whole premise of Ruthless. But anyway, that's for a different discussion. Today, we've got news about no balanced manifesto for 321, and here's the explanation why. So, posted by the community team, very soon we'll begin revealing the upcoming content for our 321 expansion. This time around, we won't be posting balance manifestos detailing the expansion's balance changes. Balance manifestos are great at communicating certain types of content. Whenever we want to do deep work on a particular game system, they provide a good opportunity to clearly explain the changes in a self-contained way outside of the hubbub of live stream day. They will also give us longer to gather feedback about whether those systems changes are in the right direction. Over the years, though, we've learned that there are certain types of changes that balance manifestos are less appropriate for. Often, changes require greater context that the live stream explains, or benefit from video as a form of communication. Sometimes there's just so much numerical detail that the Balance Manifesto ends up reading like a set of patch notes. That's been a complaint that I've had over the years. That's certainly true. Weirdly detached from the rest of the actual patch notes that you need to understand the context and plan for your builds. 321's balance changes are mostly of the latter type. So that means the last line here. Okay, this line here, let's do some basic reading here. This means that this one right here. Sometimes there's just so much numerical detail that the Balance Manifesto ends up reading like a set of patch notes. So there's going to be so many changes that they're not doing a Balance Manifesto, and the changes seem to be numerical. Okay, just FYI, that's what this sentence leads us to believe. 321's balance changes are mostly of the latter type. We'll explain them on the live stream and post the full details in the patch notes on announcement day. Don't worry, though, there aren't scary systems reworks that we need to solicit feedback on ages in advance. Okay, so no major changes to systems, just a lot of numbers changes. Okay, our balance goals with 321 are to provide more options and more fun for as many builds as possible, rather than reworking game systems in potentially disruptive ways. While there are, of course, some small nerfs, 321 is most definitely not a nerf fest. Okay, sometimes the reason why I'm blinking sarcastically, longingly, is because sometimes what we get in some communications, sometimes it actually turns out to be the opposite. So this is going to be a grab your torch and pitchforks rage-inducing statement if players feel, doesn't matter whether it's factual or not, just if players feel that 321 is a nerf fest, okay? Yikes. So we'll see how that works out. You know, it's a little bit like in sports when a ownership group of a professional sporting group comes out and says, hey, the coach is definitely not in trouble. We are 100% behind the coach. And then 2 weeks later, the coach is fired. We'll see if that holds true here. All right, we can't wait to unveil the changes in the upcoming live stream and check out what builds you create in 321. Okay, so we won't have a balanced manifesto. Typically, what does an announcement week and a hype cycle look like for Path of Exile? Those of you who are veterans around here, then you know what it looks like. If you're new, here's typically what we get. 2 weeks in advance to a league launch, we will get a league reveal, which will give us the name of the league. It'll give us the theme of the league. It'll give us a trailer for the league, a video trailer for the league. And then oftentimes, more recently, we will get an extended Q&A, an interview, typically done by Ziggy D, and one of the lead developers of Path of Exile, Chris Wilson. Typically, that Q&A will last for about an hour. Usually, they stream it over on Twitch, and oftentimes players can send in questions, or millions of players, or hundreds of players, or thousands of players, or whatever. Some magical number of players can ask a magical number of relatively the same question, and that will be asked to Chris just about it. First initial impressions. That's 2 weeks out. That's 2 weeks prior to a league launch. And then typically over the next 2 weeks, we then are teased with different items. We're given different snippets of information that slowly, a slow drip of information to build hype and to build excitement leading up to launch day. That's typically what we get. The week of launch, we usually get a balanced manifesto. Depending on where you are in the world, that's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And then we'll get patch notes. That's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then we'll get eventually gem information as well as a pre-patch note drop or a pre-patch download that's available typically the night before or the day before, again, depending on where you are in the world. That's kind of a typical timeline. So with no balanced manifesto, we're going to lose out on some information, quote unquote. We're losing out on some information. But what Grinding Gear Games is saying here is, hey, this is information that's actually really, really boring and lame if we just release it as a manifesto. That's what I'm hearing as I'm reading this. There's going to be a lot of numerical changes. But, here's kind of what's interesting about this. If this sentence is true, I'm trying to think this through as a business. If this is true and it's not a nerf fest, then a balanced manifesto where we came out with like some extra set of patch notes, but it was just a bunch of buffs, players might actually like to read that. Like if we just read a long list of numbers, again, remember who the target demographic is for, Path of Exile, for the players who love Path of Exile, like you, like me, we have a million gazillion tabs pulled up on our computers and we're always doing spreadsheets for fun. Yeah, so it's going to be very, very interesting to see what this hype cycle does. If this really makes that big of a change, it's interesting that they would announce, like, hey, we're making an announcement that we're not doing a balanced manifesto. Like, balanced manifestos have apparently become a big enough part of the release cycle and the hype cycle that to take them away, thank you, Grinding Gear Games, for feeling like, always keeping good communications and good lines of communication open between players and the company that makes the beloved game. But it's interesting that somebody in-house at GGG said, hey, we should let the player base know that we're not going to do a balanced manifesto. So I wonder what that's going to look like compared to patch notes, if that's going to have any impact on patch notes length, on what exactly patch notes look like. It's going to be interesting. My overall sense, especially since 321 got pushed back by like more than a month of what the regular scheduled timing is, my general sense is it's all hands on deck for PoE 2 right now. Like they are crunching and pushing and doing everything that they can to work very hard to make sure that Path of Exile 2 is an exceptional product, which means that anything that's extraneous, anything that is extra, anything that is potentially cuttable, to use an expression here in the United States, to cut the fat, any way that you can cut any excess fat off of something, do it. Right? Because they're really pushing for PoE 2. That has been my sense since PoE 2 was announced. It's been my hypothesis, and my thesis has been that everything that GGG does from here on out is about PoE 2, whether it's out of game, talking about their business model, whether it's in game, talking about how they display game changes, how they talk about game changes, how they actually implement game changes, and what changes they're actually making to the game. My thesis for the last couple of years has been everything's about PoE 2, so it shouldn't come as a shock to you today to hear your balding, bearded buddy here say, hey, I think this is probably something to do with PoE 2. But anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it for today. Feel free to drop your own conspiracy thoughts, as it were, or your own hypotheses, your own comments, your own questions down below about why you think GGG is not going to be doing a balanced manifesto. And as always, I hope the upcoming 321, whatever league, unnamed league it will be, is the league a Mayor of Calandra drops for you.
Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like more information on any of our discussion points today, you can see them down below in the video description. If you'd also like to join our Discord or support our Patreon, you can do so with the links down below. Thanks again, and big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters.